Here.
No, thanks, Sally.
Thank you so much, Sally. I appreciate that. I appreciate that. It's good to spread the love on the minute taking. So I appreciate that. So I have a very large set of announcements and updates. First, I would like to have a moment of silence for Thursday is the 20th anniversary of the crash of American Airlines Flight 587, which was a highly traumatic event for this community. And I think it's always appropriate to mark that occasion. And today is also the 83rd anniversary of Kristallnacht, the Nazi pogroms in Germany. So a moment of silence for that. Thank you. Again, thanks to Nobles for taking minutes. Thanks to Sally for volunteering to take minutes next month. A couple of procedural notes. I just want to let people know that we do have a chat feature and people are welcome to throw their questions or their comments into the chat, but just know that while the panelists can see the chat, it's not part of the official record. It is preserved, but it's not preserved in the recording. So when people go to the YouTube to watch the meeting, they don't have access to the chat. It is for this reason that when people ask questions and I will answer them and I will say out loud what the essence of the question is and what the answer is, so that that is captured for the public. Similarly, if people have comments or questions, we can see them and we will get to them when it's appropriate within the meeting. The fact that we're not answering them right away doesn't mean that we don't see them, and continuing to ask the same question isn't really necessary. We see it, we will get to it. But blowing up the chat is the Zoom equivalent of, shouting things out in a room, and we wouldn't do that in an in-person meeting. So I would encourage people to not blow up the chat in the virtual forum. Lastly, I also want to note that in terms of the agenda, we are required by the open meetings law to post what our agenda items are in advance so that the public knows, oh yes, there's a meeting that I definitely want to go to because whatever it is being discussed. We really try to avoid last minute drop-ins of agenda items because that's not a transparent way to conduct business. Similarly, I will often have updates such as I have this evening. That's not an invitation to add them to the discussion or as discussion items. That's just me giving you information that of what has transpired since the last meeting. So to that end, the Highbridge Water Tower, it is open. Go, it's fantastic. There are tours one Saturday and one Sunday a month from like 1 to 3 p.m. There's information on the Parks Department's website on how to sign up for that. They are free, but registration is required. The Dominican Film Festival begins tonight at the United Palace. It's a wonderful event in our community, and it's great that it is in person this year. Danny is going to be representing the committee at that event, which is why he is not able to attend this evening, but I'm really pleased that he dropped in at the beginning so that he could show us his medal from the marathon. I can't believe that he had a time under 4 hours in his first marathon. Broadway is back. Go if you can. It's safe, and ushers are really, really diligent about making sure that people are wearing masks. So if you have the ability to go see Broadway and off-Broadway plays, it is safe, and it is really remarkable to be back in in-person theater. I don't know about you, but I missed it a lot. The capital and budget expense the capital and expense budget priorities for fiscal 23, that exercise that we did last month. The full board went through that whole process and ranked not only our committee's items, but the other committee's items. Unfortunately, the Parks Committee's items did not do as well as it has in prior years. The board's number one through the top 5 capital items were a 911 upgrade, an upgrade to the 157th Street IRT station, which keeps getting flooded. Thanks, climate change. Repairs to West 174th Street between Audubon and Amsterdam Avenues, the addition of bioswales and other green infrastructure, which was sort of one of our priorities, but that actually went through the Health and Environment Committee, and a Wi-Fi upgrade. Our committee's number 1 and number 2 priorities, which were reconstruction of the Little Red Lighthouse and path paving in our various parks, came in at numbers 25 and number 17 respectively. On the expense side, the board's top 5 priorities were more funding for mental health services, for food pantries, for a full-time COVID vaccination site, for legal representation for housing, and for housing itself for families at risk of becoming homeless. This committee's top 2 priorities were extension of the additional $25 million in Playfair fund annually in Playfair funding for parks, and an interpretive signage program at the Inwood sacred sites. These were ranked by the board numbers 11 and 24 respectively. Some of you are, I am sure, I hope, aware of a proposed development at 4650 Broadway. That's at Sherman Avenue. This is a development that is seeking a higher height than would be allowed due to the inclusion of a supermarket under the city's fresh program for food deserts. Since the Land Use Committee had unanswered questions, they did not pass a resolution, but planning, the New York City Planning Department has to get the board's feedback by December 9th. So any feedback that we're going to offer as a board has to be done this month. The Land Use Committee chair is going to recommend that the Executive Committee pass a resolution recommending against the application due to serious concerns about height, negative impacts on landmark views of Fort Tryon Park, and the negative development precedent in the Broadway corridor. And also noting that this area is not, in fact, a food desert. So again, this is not a discussion item. I would encourage people to attend the executive committee to observe the proceedings there and to speak out in favor or opposed, however it is you feel about this project, at the general meeting in November, at which I imagine the executive committee's resolution would likely pass, I will say. So that's that item. There's been a lot of active information on that on Facebook, lots of information out there. Yeah, so update on the Inwood ceremonial sites and the proposed BRC project at on 10th Avenue and 212th Street. BRC has taken title to the property and they are going to be proceeding. So I imagine that a proposal will be coming at some point before probably the Housing and Human Services Committee, but there's been strong integration of the many concerns regarding preservation of the sacred sites and appropriate commemoration of the historical significance of that site. I am advised by Columbia University that construction of the floating dock at the Muscota Marsh is scheduled to begin on November 17th and is expected to be completed by January of 2022. The project team will provide weekly updates to the community. If people want to receive these updates, they can email Sandra Harris and request to be added to the project listserv. Her email is sh533 cumc.columbia.edu. Once again, that's sh533@cumc.columbia.edu if you would like to be added to that listserv.
Is that F as in frog or S as in snake?
S is in Sandra, H
Sandra.
is in Harris.
Thank you.
And I'm going to be sending you this whole thing for the
For the minutes, thanks.
The Row New York project, boathouse at Sherman Creek is going to be the subject of a consent agenda, is one of the items on the consent agenda at the Public Design Commission next week. A consent agenda item means that there's no public testimony. Because there's no public testimony, we are not revisiting that here, having really fully vetted that project in this committee multiple times. I do want to note for the record, Sally Fisher's strong objection to that project on the grounds that the bathrooms will only be accessible to the public during the times that the building itself is open to the public. But again, not a discussion item, just wanted to let you know that that is going forward. And apparently the borough president recommended that Row New York do what they could to make the bathrooms as accessible as possible and to make the kayak and canoe storage areas as accessible as possible and as large as possible. Last couple of items. I did go to the Hispanic Society's opening of the Gilded Figures Wood and Clay Made Flesh, not made fresh, made flesh. It is a wonderful exhibit. I encourage you to go. It's free and open to the public at the Hispanic Society. Last two items. There's no update yet from the Parks Department on the Fort Tryon Park restaurant concession RFP. It's a pretty lengthy process. It takes a while. I anticipate that we will have an update at some point, hopefully in the new year, but I just wanted to let people know that I do periodically ask the Parks Department if there's any news, and there is no news. Last item, I want to flag for everybody that this weekend there are two events happening. On Sunday from noon to 3 on the cafe lawn, there's the Margaret Corbin event reenactment in Fort Tryon Park, commemorating the Battle of Fort Washington, and that will include a talk by Zach Landsberg, who did the wonderful public art temporary installation of Margaret Corbin on the Linden Terrace. And this weekend is also the feast of Mother Cabrini. So there's lots of programming, much of it religious in nature, but much of it also historical in nature. So if you do not know of the St. Francis Cabrini Shrine, this weekend might be a good time to check it out. That is my report. I see Sally has a question. If this is a clarifying question, I welcome you to ask it.
I just wanted to mention there's no chat function. At least I don't see it. I see a Q&A.
Right. I'm sorry. I used the word chat. I meant Q&A. We do not have the ability to chat with each other. The public has the ability to ask us questions. To that end, Maggie Clark asked a question about what the Parks Department thinks about the 19-story building casting shadows into Fort Tryon Park. I obviously cannot speak for the Parks Department, but I believe I covered in my report that this committee is on record as having issues with height development at that site. So I don't think I'm overstepping my reach as chair in reiterating that the same concerns that we had for a similar project some years ago at that site, we would still have. Again, we're not discussing this item. I would encourage people who have thoughts and feedback on that to attend the executive committee meeting and the general meeting. Nicholas, I see you have your hand up. I know that you have a report that you wanted to make. This is not the time in the agenda.
Sorry.
So I will get to you in just a moment. If there are no other questions. Okay, next up at 6:50, we have brief programming updates from Cultural and Friends of Parks organizations. And Nicholas's hand is first up.
Great. So I just wanted to take a moment quickly to introduce myself to everyone. My name is Nicholas Hughes, and I am the new Haven Plaza Programming Coordinator for Columbia University Medical Center, Office of Government and Community Affairs. I work alongside Sandra Harris, who I think some of you guys might know. So I just, again, wanted to introduce myself, let you guys know about a couple programs that we've got going on in the coming weeks here. The Tuesday before Thanksgiving, in correlation with, terribly sorry, I think there's a plane passing by outside, but on the Tuesday, November 23rd, before Thanksgiving, we're going to be hosting a Fall Fest community get together with a number of giveaways in correlation with the Fort Washington Green Market from 11 in the morning to 3 p.m. And we'll be passing along more information about the specifics of it as we get them from CUMC events. Additionally, we're currently in the works on planning a nice fun holiday lighting celebration on Haven Plaza with lights that will remain up throughout the course of the holiday season and into 2022. So that celebration is likely to take place December 1st. We're still getting some of the details in line, but we've had talked with some community groups already about potentially having music, some hot cocoa and tea to give away, and really try to bring everybody together to celebrate and kick off the holiday season. So again, I just wanted to introduce myself and thank you guys for having me.
Thank you for that. I appreciate that. Next up, we have Sally, who will be speaking for the Washington Heights Inwood Food Council and Friends of Inwood Park.
Okay, I didn't have my hand up to speak. We just did a big waterfront cleanup on Saturday in northern Inwood Park. So if it looks beautiful, that's why. We also had yoga. We had upcycled arts, working with a school called Pono and Scraptacular. So it was a great day. And then on Sunday, the Washington Heights Inwood Food Council had their final family garden day of the season, harvested a lot of food, played games, did all sorts of stuff, but sent a lot of food home to the community. So big success for both groups.
Thank you. And thank you as always for your incredible stewardship. Ian Caddick from Row, New York.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes.
Hi, yeah, thank you, Liz. I just wanted to let y'all know that we have a few more spots remaining in our Manhattan rowing program for high school students. That's at the Peter J. Sharp Boathouse. No experience is necessary, and swimming lessons are provided to any students who need them. So if any of you know any interested high school students, they should email info@rownewyork.org, and I'll put that email address in the Q&A. We're also happy to be restarting our veterans rowing program, which was paused due to COVID. The program is open to veterans with and without disabilities. Right now, we're currently gauging interest for the program and seeing if there's enough of a demand for us to offer our services in Manhattan at the Peter J. Sharp Boathouse, in addition to Queens. So if any of you know any interested parties, they should also email us. And that's it for me.
Okay, thank you. I'm just gonna lower your hand. Next up, we've got Sally. Are you raising your hand for?
Are they recruiting middle school students as well? Just a quick question for Row, New York.
Can you still hear me?
Yes, we can still.
Yes. Oh, okay. No, this year we're just doing high school students. We had to scale back a little bit due to COVID. I think in the spring we might be reintroducing the middle school program, but so far just high school.
Okay, great, thanks.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, thank you. Barbara, are you asking a question or making a report? You're muted.
Yeah, I just wanted to make an announcement for the Ring Garden that December 5th, we'll be having our annual tree lighting, approximately about the 30th tree lighting at the Ring Garden, and offering, of course, nice cocoa and some other festivities. Hopefully, we will have Mr. and Mrs. Claus again this year, trying to firm that up. Not definite yet. And we'll also be expanding the nice lighting that we did with the white lights in the back of the garden. We hope to be expanding that this year. So working on that this week. But basically December 5th will be the tree lighting at the Ring.
Fantastic. There's an awful lot of hot cocoa in this neighborhood between the Haven Plaza and the Ring Garden.
There's never too much cocoa.
This is true.
Never.
Never too
Never.
much cocoa. Okay, Jennifer Hoppa.
Oh, thanks, Liz. Since November tours are already full for the High Bridge Water Tower, I just wanted everyone to know the December dates are up. It's December 4th and December 12th from 1 to 3. And you do need to register. It's pretty narrow getting up to the viewing platform, and the viewing platform itself can only accommodate about a dozen people, but it's totally worth the 179 steps. Incredible views of the Palisades, Queens, the Bronx. It's in a lot of New York City landmarks. On the 13th, our partners at the New York City Mountain Biking Association are having a trail work and bike share party. This Saturday, the Fort Tryon Park Trust is putting on a nature photography class led by local artist Michael Palmamir, an incredible photographer. That's at 10 a.m. at 172nd in Amsterdam. Rangers are putting on a fall foliage hike at Seaman and Isham at Inwood Hill on Sunday at 1 p.m. And they're putting on a Black Friday hike on November 25th. And on the 28th, they have the Great Trees of Inwohill Park at 11, starting at Payson. And as Liz mentioned, Parks and the Fort Tryon Trust are having a commemoration of the Battle of Fort Washington. And Margaret Corbin does come back from the dead. We have an artist who is very focused on Margaret Corbin and channels her and leads you through the battle scene. Which is pretty phenomenal. And there'll be fife and drums. There's a blacksmith.
Yes, but will there be cocoa?
It's BYOC.
Okay.
And more can be found on the Parks Department's website, obviously. One other big thing is check out the High Bridge Recreation Center. Parks is still offering free membership, and they've got everything from pickleball to computer lab to teen basketball to meetups. It has so much programming that's available for free if you become a member, and you can register on site, and your membership will be good until next November. So please do take advantage of that.
Fantastic. Thank you so much. Next up, we have the hardest working public servant in Community Board 12, Natalie Espino. Let me.
Hi, folks. Natalie from the Manhattan Borough President's Office. I just wanted to share a few quick arts update notes. I think you all saw the press releases about the big $450 million investment for tourism that includes several pockets of money, some of which require still some legislative action to make them possible. But it's unclear exactly how much direct help will go to the creative sector. And so, of course, that, my battle cry is always that, no one comes to New York for just dinner. It's dinner and a show, dinner and something else. But, the food just isn't good enough to justify train fare, airfare, hotel, or parking. So without these venues like our great museums and theater, we're kind of, it's great to give help to hotels and restaurants, but without the arts, there's no coming back for New York. So just, I think that keep an eye out. There are advocacy opportunities coming up. There is a city council hearing on Monday morning that is a joint update from the Cultural Affairs Committee and the Business Committee, the Economic Development Committee, addressing exactly this. What is the state right now of the sector, and how can we make sure that our arts institutions and especially our nonprofit arts institutions are eligible for some of this relief. So I think that there is some room between now and January to contact state officials and get better answers on that. And as we hear more, we'll let you know. And if you go to the NISCA website, also tomorrow, there are guidelines for their capital funding. So any organizations on this call who applied for that are waiting for those guidelines. They are released, and they'll have a webinar tomorrow at 11 in the morning on those funds. Capital funding, as you know, is new for NISCA. Capital funding for the arts used to come from Reddick. So everybody's still trying to figure it out. But more information is always helpful. And my notes on cocoa is that I take mine in the daytime with a cinnamon stick boiled into it, and in the evening with peppermint schnapps, the real stuff from Germany.
Okay, I will keep that in mind. You heard it here first. Natalie, what is NISCA's website? Is it nisca.ny.gov?
Hold on, let me open that thing again. So that's a Zoom link. I think it's culture.ny.gov.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, and just a quick note to anybody who gave a report, if you could just do me and Nobles a favor of dropping a quick couple of sentences in an email to both of us, so that we can it just makes it a lot easier with the minutes to cut and paste it into the minutes. Lastly, we did get an email earlier today from Marty Collins from the Northern Manhattan Arts Alliance, who is working this evening, and asked that we announce that this Thursday's Live with Noma at 7:30 will feature Nadima Agard, who is a wonderful local artist. That NOMA's technical assistant workshops continue virtually with Michael Palma and grant writing for artists at 6:30 on Monday, November 15th. And you can RSVP at NOMA's website, which is nomaanyc.org. And that you can also go there to read their website, to read their newsletter that has lots and lots of wonderful events happening throughout the month. Anybody that I missed? Going once, going twice. Aha. I saw Kelly's, again, this is not for, well, if you are representing an organization, feel free to take a minute to tell us what's going on. We've got Kelly. You're unmuted. Kelly?
Are you on mute, Kelly, personally?
I've I'm clicking the ask to unmute, but all right, well, while Kelly's figuring out her audio, we're gonna, oh,
There we go.
we got Kelly.
Hi there. Yes, I actually just wanted to announce a new group that formed recently, and we had an event. I don't know if this is the appropriate time to do this, or if there's a later
Sure.
public
Sure,
comment period. Okay,
this is it.
Yes.
What's your group?
awesome. Yes, so it's Highbridge Park Neighbors, and we're basically interested in the park area, especially at the West 190th entrance, and we formed also around the dog run. We recently had a stewardship event, October 31st. We had about 7 people come out and got some support from parks to do some cleanup of the dog run. And we're hoping to have a regular stewardship event every month. But just wanted to mention that, we're active and hoping to get more people together and do this on an ongoing basis.
Fantastic. Thank you so much for your advocacy and for your organizing. And, not to add stuff to your calendar, but I would love for you or for somebody from your organization to come to these meetings. Doesn't have to be every month, but, if you're dropping in periodically, these meetings are good ways to connect with people with shared interests around our open spaces. So thank you for that.
Excuse me, Kelly.
Absolutely. I learned a
what's
lot
your last
just
name?
sitting in on the session today. So
Thanks so much. What's your
Kelly,
last?
what's your last name for the minutes?
yes, it's Ray, R-A-Y. And the
Okay.
group is Highbridge Park Neighbors.
Great. Thank you very much.
Super.
Thank you.
And last but not least, we've got Cassandra Collazo.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Hi, I don't know if this is the appropriate time in the meeting where I can talk about a new program that I've been facilitating with the Rangers.
Sure.
Okay.
You got a minute and a half.
All right. This
You're
is
with the
really for
Girl Scout
Jennifer.
troop?
Okay. This is really for Jennifer. Hi, Jennifer. How are you? My name is Cassandra. I'm the Inwood Girl Scout troop leader. And I've been facilitating with the help of the amazing Ranger Rob and Ranger Lisa, a toddler music and nature program with 4 Inwohill Park Rangers who have come in, and we've been singing and it's been amazing. And we have tons of toddlers coming every Tuesday at 10 a.m. It's been running for about 5 weeks now, and it'll run until the end of November, which is November 30th. And I mean, we're talking about rock stars. Rangers come with mics and guitars and tambourines, and we're just having a great time. So I just wanted to give a huge shout out for these amazing Rangers, Ranger Rob, Ranger Lisa, Ranger Josh, Ranger Carly. They've all been coming and, helping me do this program, which has been just amazing community building. And parents are just very excited about it. So Jennifer, just wanted to let you know what's going on. I think I sent you a video.
I got your email. Yes, thank you.
That's fantastic. Thank you also for your advocacy in getting this program going. And yes, we do love our Rangers. I will say that toddlers are very small. With a ton of them, that's a lot of toddlers. So good for you. Thank you. And rounding out, last but not least, Timothy Brown has posted in the chat, there is a holiday market from 12 to 6 p.m. at the community garden on 158th Street between Broadway and Amsterdam. It's sort of mid-block on the north side of the street. It's a beautiful community garden. The market showcases local handmade products from small businesses and is the only holiday market we know of in Washington Heights. The market runs until December 19th, every Saturday, weather permitting. If people have questions about that, they can hit Timothy Brown up on Instagram. The handle is at 158th Street Garden. So that's 158 THST Garden NYC. So seeing no other hands, I'm going to move the agenda at 7:09 to item 4, the presentation of the plan for the reconstruction of retaining walls in Inwood Hill Isham and J. Hood Wright Parks and the Dorothy Mcgowan Memorial Garden. That presentation is going to be from HDR Architecture and Engineering PC and New York City Parks. And just before you all start with that, I'm going to ask you to turn on your video, but I see in the chat also, Dave Tom had one quick announcement to close out the Halloween season. The Inwood Pumpkin Pageant in Isham Park on November 1st was a huge success with very happy attendees and over 250 jack-o'-lanterns. Photos are posted at facebook.com/InwoodPumpkin. See everybody at the next pageant on November 1st, 2022. I will add that I'm super bummed that I completely forgot about it until like midnight on the 1st. And I even had a jack-o'-lantern and I could have gone and I didn't. So I will see you in 2022 and I guess I'll have to carve another pumpkin. So Kimberly, I'm going to ask you to unmute and you do have the ability to share screen.
Liz, am I doing the regular parks report later on in the agenda?
Oh my goodness. Yes, no, you are actually, Kimberly, I'm so sorry. You are item 4. Jennifer is item 3, the brief parks report, and that is 100% my bad. I am so sorry.
I was wondering,
No,
I was wondering what was going on.
No,
I just thought it might be helpful to know other capital projects and then on a bigger scale and then focus in on this.
this is my least favorite part of aging. It's the periodic brain farts. What can I say? So yeah, if you could just give us a quick update on what's happening.
Sure.
Slowly.
I'll
And if-
focus.
Email us a report. It makes nobles in my lives.
Sure. We finished the High Bridge Water Tower, as many of you know, which is wonderful. And now we've begun the $4 million HVAC project at the High Bridge Recreation Center. For people who maybe are just on phones, this is Jennifer Hoppe, the administrator for Northern Manhattan Parks. $4 million at the High Bridge Recreation Center, which will result in wonderful heating and AC. Since we've made it a year-round facility, we really want to make this added investment. So very excited about that. On the bike path, the West Side Bike Path, the contractor is starting to mobilize, but they're pulling permits first from the Department of Transportation. There may be some periodic roadway closures depending on what section of 181st to Dyckman Street that they're repairing at the time. I wanted to amend something that I had said at a prior meeting. Contractor doesn't think that he will have to close access to the wooden deck bridge, except for a very short window of time. So we'll be able to do work and keep access at 181st going down to the Little Red Lighthouse, and then maybe for a short period of time have intermittent access down to the Little Red Lighthouse, but it isn't the 4-month span that previously was anticipated, which is very good news. And obviously the work is now starting in the winter, which means fewer cyclists are going to be effective. The Loftus Playground, the construction is well underway. We had the groundbreaking ceremony on October 20th. We heard some community complaints about the loss of benches along Broadway. The contractor was directed to change his construction fence line. So those benches have been, those 30 benches are now accessible. But sort of a silver lining that came out of this is we recognized that there was a real opportunity for sort of a seating plaza right at the A train. So those benches will probably stay following the construction. There's 6 new benches and people really love those. Audubon Playground, the new comfort station is nearing the finish line. We're waiting on some electrical connections. Monsignor Kett is about to be awarded, which is a significant project that this committee helped really inform the design process, the design outcome for. And you mentioned the Muskota Marsh dock work happening. It's actually park stock and the public stock, but it is part of Columbia's obligation to make repairs to it. So they're doing that. Our friends at the
That's my bad for suggesting that it was Columbia's dock. I
oh
meant-
no, it's the public stock, but yes, on Columbia's obligation to fix it. The Dykeman Street sidewalk along the southern perimeter of Inwohill Park was reconstructed thanks to the Department of Transportation. And this committee has frequently asked about the wall crash site at Fort Tryon. That micro purchase rebid is advancing, and so a contractor is now on board and presumably will be mobilizing in the near term, which is really exciting. I think most people know that the prefab comfort station was awarded $3.5 million for Fort Washington Park next to the Discovery Playground. 186th Street basketball courts got additional funding, is now fully funded. So once a designer has been assigned to it, we'll be having a public scoping meeting for that, which may be out in the cold, but and I believe I announced last month, President Brewer gave an additional $250,000 for pathway work. Anything else before we lead into this the specific capital project for these 4 sites?
Yeah, I got 2 quick clarifying questions. $250,000 in pathway work that's just general pathway work throughout the parks or something specific?
So there's state of good repair pathway work that's going to be happening in Inwood Park on some of the worst sections, $800,000. And then in Fort Tryon Park. And at Fort Tryon Park, Gale's funding is being added to it. So some of the sections that are falling apart are going to get to be repaired.
Excellent. And the wall crash site in Fort Tryon Park, that's being funded by the guy who did the damage?
Yes, we went after the perpetrator is the wrong word, sorry. The culprit, and collected insurance from Geico.
Great. Excellent. Thank you very much.
And now, Kimberly, or do you want me to do questions?
There are no questions, so let's
Okay.
Thank you so much.
Good evening, everyone. So I'm Kimberly Buda from Parks Capital, and I'll be presenting our plans for the reconstruction of retaining walls in 4 sites in Manhattan. Sorry, there we go. Okay, so the initial goals of the program, we assessed several walls, and basically these walls were chosen as having potential hazards, so they were prioritized, and we're looking to cost effectively stabilize, reconstruct, and extend the useful life as many walls as possible, and to maintain the site functions and aesthetics of the walls. The first wall we'll be looking at is at Inwohill Park.
Sorry to interrupt, just will you be able to send us this slide deck? Because it'll be a lot easier again for the minutes.
Of course, yes.
Fantastic. Thank you so much.
No problem. So the goals for this wall in particular are to repair localized areas of the retaining wall that have been deteriorated and have missing joints and missing stones, to reconstruct areas of the retaining wall which have failed. The total area of failure is, it's 85 linear feet. And to provide stability to the path that's supported by the wall. Here you can see where it's located within the park, and the dashed line is the site access route to get to the wall site due to the steep topography. And here we can see that it's outside of the flood zone. And we can see surrounding land use. And this just shows some of the adjacent parks facilities. Fort Tryon is nearby, and Isham Park is also nearby. Oops, sorry about that. Okay, so here the existing conditions in red are the areas that will need to be where the wall will need to be replaced along the length of this stretch. And it'll also involve one tree removal. Here's some photos that you can see where the wall has failed, and there's been some subsidence at the path as well. And here we're showing the proposed section of rebuilding the wall and also adding railing, a minor railing along the edge of the path due to the grade change. So the next site is Isham Park, and we actually have two sites in this park. Here the goals are to repair multiple areas of deteriorated joints and displaced stones on both the upper and lower level retaining walls. On the upper level, we'll be replacing a 10-foot section, and on the lower level, a 45-foot section, and also stabilizing the slope on the lower level. Here you can see both sites as well as the access routes to those sites. Here's surrounding land use, and the flood risk, again, is outside of the flood zone. And here's surrounding neighborhood context with, again, Inwohill Park, because both parks are so close to each other. And here you can see just the highlighted areas of where those reconstructions will occur in red for both the upper and the lower level. Here's some existing photos of the upper level, and it's not as apparent from the upper side of the wall, but it is, you can see there are missing stones from the lower level that need to be replaced. And there's a section, the section that's being completely replaced is has shifted somewhat, so we need to replace that section.
Mm-hmm.
And here's the lower level wall, which is definitely has a point of failure, and there's some other places where it's bulging. So we'll be addressing both this point of failure as well as the places that are bulging out. The proposed section for the upper level is basically just a reconstruction of what is there, with the addition of weep holes for to aid in drainage. And similarly, for the lower level wall is a reconstruction of the existing wall as is, with the addition of drainage layer behind and weep holes. The next site is J. Hood Wright Park. And again, the goal is to stabilize and reconstruct sections of the existing retaining wall, to maintain stability of the supported public street and sidewalks at the top of the wall, and to maintain stability of the adjacent pedestrian ramp connection. And I'd just like to point out that that ramp is not structurally connected. Here you can see where the site is located, as well as the access route to the wall. Here's the surrounding land use. And again, out of the flood zone. And here we can see the neighborhood context with Bennett Park, Fort Washington Park, High Bridge, all within a 10-minute walk. And here is some existing photos of the wall, and you can see from number 2 that the wall has shifted. You can see a fairly substantial crack, both from the upper level at the parapet and below. So this is what we'll be addressing. And the proposed solution is to add soil anchors with a channel that would be consistent along the full length, the full face of the wall. And that would also be painted to match the wall itself. And the parapet would be reconstructed. And the last site is Dorothy Mcgowan Memorial Garden, a community garden on 158th Street. Here, the goal is to reconstruct and repair multiple retaining walls at the garden, improve stability of the supported garden, and maintain stability at the adjacent property connections. So there's 2 overlapping walls, and then there's a 3rd wall towards the back of the garden. Here's the surrounding land use. And again, out of the flood zone. And the neighborhood context within a 10-minute walking radius.
Could you just go back to the last slide for a sec?
Sure.
No, the one before that. Got it. Okay, thank you.
So here you can see in red, this is the section of wall. It's actually 2 overlapping walls, but we'll be replacing with 1 wall with the chain link fence at the top. And this will have to be, to access the bottom of the wall, we do have to go through the adjacent property. We have reached out to our neighbors to discuss that.
I'm sorry, did you say you have or you have not?
We have a neighbor agreement with the adjacent property owner. And here you see images of the 2 walls that overlap, as well as further over the wall at the back of the property, which just needs repointing but not reconstruction. And this is the proposed solution at the garden. And instead of replacing with the rubble, we're proposing this solution because it requires less excavation. So it'll disturb the community garden much less than a full reconstruction of the stone rubble wall. And we can use colors and textures that would somewhat match, and it's also faces a maintenance alleyway that is not seen by the public. And that's it for our presentation. So we'd be happy to take any questions. And HDR is also on the line and can help with any questions.
Great. Before I go through with questions, I just, can you clarify, you said there was going to be 1 tree removed in Inwohill Park, and there would also be 1 tree removed in the Mcgowan Garden?
So there's actually, so in the Mcgowan Garden, there's 1 removal towards the back of the site. There's a tree, if you can see in image number 3, there's a tree that's basically growing right at the wall, and it's compromising the wall. And also when the wall fails, the structure of the tree is supported by the wall, so the tree would also fail. So that tree is coming out as a conditional removal. And
the one in Inwohill Park, that will be, I gather, replaced in some way?
Yes, so, and actually there is a room, there's also a conditional removal at Isham too. So let me point that one out as well. There's beech trees at behind the rotunda, and one of them is in poor health and is structurally not sound, so it will be removed, but we will be replacing that. And what species replaces is to be determined, but we will be replacing that tree. And then the one at, I'll go back to Inwood Park, you can see in image 1 that this tree is at a location where we do have to rebuild the wall. And in order to rebuild the wall, we have to remove this tree. So the tree restitution will be 7 new trees within Inwohill Park.
Got it.
We're coordinating the species of that with NRG due to the forever wild status of the park.
Great. So
And for those who don't know, NRG is the Natural Resources Group of the Parks Department.
So just if you could also clarify, I want to provide a little bit of context for people who may not be as familiar with these four areas. We heard earlier from Timothy Brown that there will be a craft sale in the Dorothy Mcgowan Garden. So I love that that he is here to have heard this presentation. The retaining wall in Isham Park has been a problem for quite some time, and it was actually this committee's #1 capital project a couple of years ago. So it's delightful that this is being taken care of, as well as retaining walls in some of these other areas. So I'm delighted that this is happening. If you could just give us a quick summary on the overall cost, what the timeline is for this project, and do you need a resolution? Is this doesn't have to go before PDC, does it? Do you need a reso, or this is just considered like emergency work?
It really depends on whether we go to DOB. If he could speak to the DOB requirements, and because if we do need DOB, then we would have to have PDC, which would and then a resolution would be required.
Okay.
I think a resolution is probably our safest bet if the committee would do that, because we don't know what's going to happen with the Department of Buildings and whether it's going to trigger public design.
That totally makes sense. And I just
Thank you.
And Timothy Brown from the Garden has written in the chat, all of us at the Garden are thankful for the repairs to this wall. I see Sally had a hand up, but now you don't have a hand up. So I take it your question was answered?
Yes.
Okay. And Kimberly, can you remind us what's the total cost? What's the time frame? And what's the source of the funding?
The source of the funding is mayoral, and the total cost, including soft costs, is 12.269. And that's including, like I said, all soft costs all the way through to construction and design.
12.269 million, correct?
Yes. And there's additional sites in the Bronx as well that are within that contract.
Oh, I see. Okay.
That account for that also share that funding.
You have to be helpful, but not if it's a big deal to have what's the amount for just the sites in Community Board 12. But if you don't have that readily available, we can write a resolution that just cites the full number and notes that some of the funding is going to some sites in the Bronx, in which case it would be useful to know how many sites and what those are.
Okay, so the other site, we do not have a more detailed estimate at this time. We're currently working on that. The other sites in the Bronx are Aqueduct Walk and Bronx River Parkway. There's a wall section there as well. Two fairly long sections of wall in the Bronx.
Okay, great. Also in the chat, and can you let us know what's the calendar? What's the timeline on this?
Sure. So the pre-scoping was beginning of June. So we will be done with design by June of 2022, and procurement will be another year, and then the construction should be 2 years. So, or maybe just 1 year, actually, another year for construction. That actually, I have to verify that, whether it's 1 or 2 years in construction.
Okay, I will put 1 to 2 years. From Pat Courtney of Volunteers for Isham Park, we are glad to see this work is to be done in Isham Park. The upper level site in Isham Park once held 4 beech trees. Will the other stump be ground? And why not replant 2 trees? Beeches are a memorial referenced in the park's design in that location. So my understanding of the question is you're removing 1 tree, which you'll be replacing. Is it possible to also replace the other tree that was lost, not removed due to construction? If it's possible to find the funding in the context of this program, of this project, that would be excellent.
We can definitely see if the budget would allow for that.
Thank you. Sally.
Yeah, I'm guessing the answer to this is no, but is there any way to speed up the work, especially in Isham Park?
The only thing that it's possible is to, when it does go to construction, to prioritize Isham is one of the first sites that goes into construction. It's most likely a multi-site contract. So we could put it at the top of the work of the task letters to definitely make a point that it's a priority site.
Great, thank you.
We would really appreciate that. I mean, not that I'm sure everybody thinks everything is the most important, but we have really had a lot of issues with those 2 retaining walls, particularly the very long one along Isham Alley, and that's really urgent. So if you could prioritize that, that would be great. Pat Courtney points out the wall collapse is already 3 years old and it's becoming worse. And Timothy Brown from the Mcgowan Garden asks, is it possible to do the work at the Dorothy Garden so that it doesn't affect our growing season? I don't know if that would put it at the top or the bottom or where in the queue it would put it. But yeah, if it's possible for you to schedule that so it has the least impact on the growing season, that would be ideal.
That's noted. We'll definitely share that with the construction teams.
Okay, so hold on, I'm just making myself a note. Okay, so for this part, I need everybody on the committee to please turn on their video. Wait, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Yes, we have a quorum. So we've heard what we've heard. We had not a lot of questions. It would be helpful to have a resolution on this. So in general, thumbs up, thumbs down. I'm seeing, Barbara, I can only see your eyebrows. Blink once if it's yes. Are we getting a thumbs up? You're muted.
Thumbs up. Can you see me?
Yes, I can see your eyes and your forearm. Excellent.
Okay,
I can see you now.
thumbs up.
Okay, so I will go through the slide deck, Nobles' notes, my notes, and capture, probably not quite all of the detail, because since we are talking about 4 different retaining walls, I'd like for the reso to not be 20 pages long. But I will note the cost, the funding, the timeline, the general location, a little bit of language as to the importance, a little bit of language as to the fact that particularly with regard to Iceland Park, this has been a capital priority for us. I will note that in the case of the Dorothy Mcgowan Garden, there is the neighbors agreement. I will note that Parks is open to speaking with the contractor to try and prioritize the community gardens growing season, and also to prioritize Iceland Park to go first if they can. Am I missing anything? Going once, going twice, sounds unanimous. So we've got Barbara, Sally, Nobles, Liz, and Alexis in favor. Are there any members of the committee whose votes I did not record? Okay. Thank you very much. I appreciate you. I'm really looking forward to this. I'm always very happy when projects that are important to us get done, particularly as weird as this is going to sound, the kind of unglamorous ones. People often don't get excited about things like retaining walls, but they're hugely important. So thank you, thank you, thank you. And thank you to the mayor for funding this. And without further ado, I am going to move at 7:41 to Bob Burnett.
I just want to say for the record, I find this terribly exciting. I can't wait.
Well, Sally, you and I are kind of weird like that. We do get excited by stuff like this. Oh, you know what? Actually, Bob, before you go, I have a quick question for Jennifer about something in your report that I forgot to ask you. That $4 million project for the Highbridge Rec Center. Is there like a weatherization kind of component to that? Because that had been something that we had talked about. Richard Lewis mentioned it when he was a member of this committee. So we're going like 4 or 5 years back. I'm hoping that some kind of weatherization component is included in the HVAC repairs.
I can check. This was brought to the committee when we had a meeting at Yeshiva.
Yes.
Before the pandemic. So I'll go back to Parks Engineering and see what the weatherization components are.
Great. Thank you. Okay, Bob Burnett.
All right. Thank you. Since you've given me 15 minutes, I'm going to try as succinct as possible so we have time for questions. I've even got my cell phone here, setting it for 15 minutes to make sure I don't overrun. Anyway, thank you for giving me this time. Thank the committee. I want to, since it's been a while since I've given you an extensive report on Harlem River Community Rowing, I want to go over a number of things, just kind of a quick review of who we are, how I came to Inwood, what our mission and goals, and our relationship to Inwood, what this past season has been like, the first since COVID shutdown, what our next year plans are, and what our long-term plans are. Okay, first, Harlem River Community Rowing is a 401c3 nonprofit. It is completely volunteer run. We are funded with grants and donations. We're about 12 years old. We started originally in Roberto Clemente State Park, relocated Inwood about 5 years ago. Our primary mission is to offer accessible, affordable rowing to the Inwood and greater New York communities. We have a secondary mission, which is to advocate for the Harlem River's utilization as New York's least utilized recreational resource. I can do a whole long thing to dance about how the Harlem River was in many ways the birthplace of rowing. Rowing originally started out as a workman's activity because it was the boatmen on the Harlem and the Hudson River who were racing, and it basically evolved into rowing. We know that it has taken on other auras since then, but it is rooted in the working class ethos in New York City. We moved to New York, relocated to Inwood about 5 years ago, rowing off of the Muscota Marsh dock, and through an agreement with New York City Parks and Rec, which I just want to acknowledge that, and also appreciation for Jennifer Hoppe in offering that support through there. In our initial years, we were offering a Get on the Water program, which was just an introductory class and walk down to the dock, get in a very stable barge, learn the basics of rowing, and see if it excited people. And the response was remarkable. We would go up to the Green Market and hand out flyers. Sometimes we'd stand there with an oar to kind of give people an idea what we're talking about. And the thing that was amazing is, New York we're by reputation, we always plan. We're not the most spontaneous people in the world. We would almost always have those Get on the Water offers, those 1 hour programs, oversubscribed. People would just show up that we just met, an hour ago. So it was just such an incredible experience to be so welcomed into the Inwood community. And we were just very happy in terms of the number of people who were excited about the sport. We were then able to expand the program a little bit, start offering, in addition to the Get on the Water, some basic recreational rowing programs, as well as a Learn to Row, which is a multi-week process, giving people not only the skills, but the confidence and the sense of how to really maximize their ability. And it's a long term. Rowing is something that we are always learning. So you need time to get acclimated to it. We were looking forward to doing a really full program last year in 2020, and we know what happened. So that put us back a year this last year, and also then Muscota Marsh dock, as we all know, was taken out of use and was scheduled for reconstruction, but that did not happen this year. So we pivoted and made an agreement, worked with Row New York with their location at the Peter J. Sharp Boathouse location, and they were very welcoming in terms of using their equipment and offering a very abbreviated fall program of their dock using their equipment. Now, understand that it took us a number of months to negotiate all agreements because we had to work with, secure an agreement with New York City Parks and Rec. We also had to work with New York Restoration Project, as well as Row New York, while Row New York was getting their own program back up and running. So it meant that by the time all the T's were crossed, all the I's were dotted, everything that had to be put in place and get boats to the location, we were only able to offer a 6-week program. This coming week will be our last. We were only able to offer an 6-week rec program on weekends. But to give you an idea of the response when we put out the word, we had 80 people respond. 40 of those people, approximately half of them, wanted to a learn to row program, wanted to learn the sport. Fortunately, we weren't able to offer it given the limited amount of time. But the other people signed on. We did a complete COVID check on everyone, required vaccination, did our due diligence with that. And by the time we close next week, we will have put 176 butts in seats in boats in the water, and which is we were able to do 3 rows every weekend, 2 recreational and 1 that was for novice rowers. In other words, people who either had rowed years ago and wanted to get back into the sport, or they were people who had taken a learn to row program and had not had an opportunity to really practice and expand and their skills. So we really wanted to do that because you need that for the lifeblood of our organization. You need to provide both for the people who are rowers and have the experience, but also the people who are eager to learn. So that's pretty much what this last year has been like. It was great working with Row New York. They're very, we have a great relationship with them, and we hope that continues, particularly because, they're kind of nomads in the sense that they're probably with the Muscota Marsh dock being open, they're probably using that location next year, but that's for them to address. So where are we for next year? Next year, we hope to be back in Muscota Marsh dock. The grand plan is to offer not only weekend recreational rows, if we have access to a barge to again bring back our Get on the Water program, which is this 1 hour, you just walk down, get in a boat, you learn the base, get in a barge. It's a very stable platform and it's a lot of fun and low stress, and see whether you like it or not. And then I learn to row program. Then based on interest and availability, we would also like to offer 2 midweek recreational rows in the mornings, like on a Tuesday and a Thursday, perhaps, for those that really want more time on the water. And then in the summertime, to offer 1 evening row while it is still light out, mid-June to mid-August. We used to do that over at Roberto Clemente State Park. We would like to bring that back. It's a fun way of, ending your day by being on the water. Again, all of that is going to be dependent on equipment availability, level of interest, coaching, having coaches can do that, and all of that. So, but we're looking forward to that. We really want to be able to expand and offer a full year's program. So what's our long-term plan? Harlem River Community Rowing, we have a 10-year master plan that we are only now, we had hoped to start kicking into gear a year ago until COVID hit. So it's really been held up until this year. What we would like to do is ultimately grow our organization. Currently, we are the only rowing organization on the Harlem River offering adult rowing, which really complements what Row New York does. Row New York focuses on youth rowing, but where do people go after that? And that's where we feel that's where we fit in. Long term, we would like to not only plant ourselves more fully in the Inwood community, but also ultimately evolve into a larger organization, professionalize our organization, because we're very small. I'm not gonna kid you that we're some big organization, and evolve into the model of community rowing in Boston, and ultimately our own boathouse, which I will get to. But one of those intermediate purposes that we'd really like to be able to do is we want to offer rowing in Spanish. That has always been one of our interests for the last few years. We just haven't had the capacity and resources to do that. If indeed we're able to offer a full program next year up at Muscota Marsh Dock, and we have a coach and a coxswain who can give the commands, which I don't think is impossible to do, but that requires some outreach to find someone or to bring people on who can do it, who have the time and the commitment. Because remember, we are all volunteer. The only people who get paid with us are our coaches. So that's one of our more immediate goals. But long term, we're looking for a location for a boathouse of our own. Now I know that Row New York will be opening their community boathouse, which I think is great. It's a great facility. But by the same token, one of the benefits of having two boathouses on the Harlem is you have coverage for when there is some sort of problem with one location or the other. It also means that if you have two boathouses on the river, you're better able to offer a regatta such as a head of the Harlem, or having collegiate programs come and compete on the river, because then you have two locations separate from one another for launching boats. So it isn't just a whole mess on one dock. I won't argue that that's necessarily the reason to have a boathouse. I'm just giving you some of the elements involved in it. There are currently two, well, I'm down to my last 2 minutes. There are two new parks scheduled to be added to the Inwood Harlem waterfront, North Cove and Academy Street. We know that North Cove has been identified as being an environmentally protected sanctuary, so that is out of the question. We've been looking at Academy Street only because, for one particular reason. It's appropriate for rowing. In fact, the adjacent Con Edison location, when it was a decommissioned plant, was a location for rowing for about 15 years up until about 1995. So we know that that location is a very good functional location for a boathouse. Empire Rowing and some other organizations rowed out of there. Our concept would be that with New York as a city of water, that the park would be a environmentally themed park dealing with climate change and resiliency, with a floating boathouse constructed of all recycled materials. The park itself would feature a play area and displays that would be themed. The play area would be themed with about climate change and resiliency as a level of education for the community, and a playful way for kids to introduce the elements, as well as displays that might be changing, and perhaps some sort of community location that would be good for live presentations and community events. We're looking for partners for that idea. We realize that EDC will be releasing requests for proposals. We obviously can't take that on all ourselves, but that's kind of one of our dreams. And I made it in exactly 15 minutes. So I guess I could go over to answer questions if that's okay.
Yeah, first, before I recognize Sally, I just want to say thank you so much for an incredibly informative presentation. You covered a lot of, I was going to say you covered a lot of, mostly you covered a lot of water, and thank you for that.
Okay. We have questions? I saw a hand, I thought.
Yeah. Sally had a hand up.
Yeah, I guess my question is, given the interest, is it just a wish, or will your agreements with Row New York, Parks, and NYRP continue into next year? Seems like a lot of work negotiating. I would hate to see them expire.
Currently, they are handled on a year-to-year basis. And that's where I'll be. In fact, Jennifer and I have already traded emails earlier today. So yes, this is something that we need to do, we do, and it's just part of the routine at this point.
So you're pursuing, continuing into the next year.
Yes. We don't worry. This past year, the reason why there was just such a lag is that, there was new leadership at Row New York. Nobody quite knew what was going to happen. COVID was still with us, and what was going to be possible. There was change in management there as well. So there was just a lot of things. After a year being kind of sitting on our hands, it took a lot for everyone to get back up to speed. And you get the wheels going, and it becomes easier to do each year, or we hope.
One would hope. I mean, I have to assume that it's easier for Row New York to do again what they've already done now that there's more familiarity with your organization. So, fingers crossed. I'm not seeing any other hands up, but are there any other questions? Going once, going twice. Well, thank you again for your presentation. It was super informative. I also really appreciate that you are a regular guest here and you keep us informed about, your organization's needs with respect to some of the projects that we consider here. And it's nice to, get this full update.
Well, thank you. Okay, and thank you for giving us the time. Let me just say.
Absolutely. So there being, are there hands up for old business or new business? Are there additional announcements? Hearing none, I will, before I take a motion for adjournment, I just want to let Kimberly know that we will send our resolution to the full board for its consideration at our November meeting, which will be November 23rd. And then as soon as we have results on that, I mean, I can't say for sure how it's going to go, but this feels pretty uncontroversial to me. So I'm liking our odds on this passing the full board, and we'll get that word to you on the 24th. Although it might be that one of our members is the chief of staff to the borough commissioner, so he will be not voting due to conflict, but he will know the result as soon as it happens. So, and with that, I will take a motion for adjournment.
I'll throw it out there. Motion to adjourn.
Seconded.
Thanks,
Fantastic.
Sally.
Thank you.
Are you noble? Anything?
Ah, you're the best.
Stop recording.
All right. Well, thank you, Chair. Thank you, committee. Thanks, Jen.
Thank you, everybody.